Tonight's event is the second in our fall community education series, where we aspire to offer free, practical, research-based strategies to help parents, teachers, and professionals better support their students. It's also our second ever fully virtual CES event. So I thank you for joining us on this journey and for having patience as we navigate a new landscape for all of us as well. Thank you again for joining us. And now it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Geraldine Pesacreta, a veteran and beloved member of the Hill Middle School faculty and coordinator of all of our executive function efforts across our school, our summer program, our tutoring program, and our teacher training efforts. Geraldine is a passionate educator who cares first and foremost about students and has taken that passion well beyond Hill to help students, families, and educators discover their own strategies for success. So thank you for joining us tonight. I'm excited. I always learn something new when Geraldine has a new presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you, Beth, and I appreciate that. And I also extend a warm welcome to everybody. I am passionate about executive function strategies and the benefits for students. And it is my greatest goal that everyone who is here this evening takes home something that will help with students. There will be information for parents, for teachers, for support personnel, and for students. And I'm really hoping that there are a number of students among you. And thank you for attending, students. This is for you, and all those that are supporting you are here for you. So let's go ahead and get started. There's lots to cover. So let's go ahead and see exactly what we're going to cover. I want to kind of look at the relationship between executive functions and study skills. Those two words appear to be synonymous, or those phrases, executive function and study skills. There's a slight difference, and want to make the clarification between those two. What is the role for a teacher or a counselor, or someone from the school, a parent, and the student to help with the student's success? What ways can a student engage to develop a plan? And then the different strategies that we're going to go ahead and consider. And this webinar is specifically on organization, time management, student investment, and online management. And that's all under organization and time management. So when we talk about executive function and study skills, many students are familiar with study skills. And executive functioning skills is becoming the new nomenclature or the new verbiage that's out there. So if we look at these two, the study skills are the actions. They're the ones here on the right, the actions that the student does. They use Quizlet to memorize. They review their notes by writing summaries. The actions that they take to understand and study the material. Executive function skills are located in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and it is what helps the student initiate doing those skills, what helps them organize doing these actions, what helps them allow enough time to implement these skills. So the brain is the organizer, and that's where executive function skills are. And the study skills are the actions completed by the students. So when we're looking at this, I'm going to go ahead and take a homework assignment that is going to be listed on the right, and we're going to go ahead and correlate it to the executive functioning skill that is required. So students have to read the assignment from the planner. That's organization. The brain helps the student decide to use a planner and then to find out where their assignment is. How long will it take? Have I allowed enough time for this homework assignment to be completed? Or am I going to have to rush? Oh, time management. I have to get the materials. Do I have my calculator? Is my computer charged? Working memory, what all do I need in order to finish this entire task? Reading the directions is both metacognition, which is right here, and also cognitive. Do I understand the language? So that is a little bit of both executive functioning and cognitive skills. Start the assignment. So we have to actually initiate. The number of times students keep putting off because of difficulty initiating. They know they need to do it. They know the task they need to do, but to stop what they're previously doing and initiating can be difficult. Avoiding distraction, the self-control. Oh, I heard my phone ding. I really want to get it, but I can't. And then not only once I initiate, but I stay focused until I'm finished. Perseverance. In other words, 15 minutes of uninterrupted, dedicated time for this particular assignment. And then returning the assignment back to the binder. And this is also where some students kind of they do all the work, they initiate, they finish it, but it sits on their desk. And that returns to organization. That'll show you the relationship between the actions the student needs to take, the study skills, and the executive functioning of the brain. So let's look at this, the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain, and it is indeed the last part of the brain to develop, and full maturation is around age 25. So these executive functioning challenges are developmentally real. And I have found it quite interesting in this last 6 months, since March, that with everything new that everybody is experiencing with online, with the technology and the apps and the portals and all that kind of stuff, I now fully appreciate what students go through under the age of 25 before the executive functioning skills develop, because it is confusing. It is hard to organize everything and keep everything straight. So I have a very keen appreciation for all of this. That is why also the students learn facts. They know those math facts. They understand the comprehension. This is where the teacher says they did it perfectly well in class, but they just can't independently follow through to get the assignment completed and turned in. And that's where in class they do quite well, because it's the teacher who hands out the assignment. I don't have to decide when to start it. It's the teacher that decides. It's the teacher who says that you have 5 minutes till the end of the period to work on this, or you've got 20 minutes for this quiz. The teacher provides the work, the pencils at the table or the desk, don't need to find materials. And the teacher will often have just gone over the directions or had just done an example during the class instruction. They tell the students to start, and they're in a group where everybody is doing this exact same assignment. There's nothing else to do. It is the innate culture of a classroom to be completing this assignment. There is nobody else out playing basketball or on the phone with somebody. So there's nothing else to do. There are no other distractors, and the teacher will collect it or tell the students to go ahead and put their materials away. So we want to go ahead and take it from teacher-driven just in the classroom to the homework area, or now with asynchronous learning if there's assignments that have to be completed. So we're going to go over real quickly 7 fundamentals that will help support this before we go through the strategies to help support students. And looking at all these different people, the teacher, the parent, the student. Students, and yes, I thoroughly appreciate those that are attending, and thank you once again. You have to identify as a student. You are smart, you are skilled, you've proven in the classroom you can do these things. Some are of interest, some aren't, but you have the cognitive and skill set to do these things. So identify yourself as that successful student. And then engage in the process. So instead of giving up, like Michael Jordan always explains about all the failures he's experienced in those failures, and he uses the word failures, I would say mistakes, but he does use that. But engage in a strategy that will help you improve it and never give up on that. And invest in it. We're going to talk about an accountability person in order to invest in it, to have someone help you make this simpler. And to learn to think about it. Did the strategy work? What do I need to keep? What do I need to change? And we're going to go into more detail with some of these strategies with all that. This is the metacognition. And a lot of students have become quite familiar with the growth mindset. And that is the, I don't know how to do it yet. This is the, my effort has such value. If I'm willing to take the challenge without fear that I might make a mistake. That's the growth mindset. And that's been pretty popular for the last couple of years. But Dweck and her partners have found that by itself is not sufficient, that there's also the necessity to have the strategic mindset. And what that is to actually implement it. So if I ask the students in my class, what are 10 strategies that you could use to study this test? They could give me the strategies. Those strategies are very familiar to many students. And what needs to happen now is teaching students to independently, or with the support of the parent and the teacher, to implement these, to evaluate the use of them, and to modify them as necessary, because the list of the strategies by themselves is not sufficient. So an adult role, whether it's a tutor or a parent or a teacher, give a safe space for them, the student, to be vulnerable and take that risk. Allow students to make an error and allow them to make a correction from it. Give them the cues and kind of ask them the questions. What do you need to take home tonight? So instead of saying, take your biology book and your notes, pose the question so the kids can organize the materials. Provide them with some strategies so that they can learn them. Kind of talk with them, be a sounding board of what the strategies might be that we will talk about in a little bit, and to guide them into thinking about how it worked. I will, even on the bottom of a worksheet or a test, ask the students what worked, what didn't work, and what do we need to change for the next test. And so the students learn to go ahead and process this. We have a weekly self-reflection activity that the students go through, and they look at what kinds of strategies did work. And not every strategy has to change, but sometimes the strategy just needs, the strategy works perfectly fine, modify it, or choose a completely different strategy. All of them are perfectly fine. I would also recommend with the adult either to help support the student to communicate, or you communicating, depending on the age and the comfort level of the student, to communicate with the parent, with the teacher, that this is going on, that a new strategy is being used, because that can help. The parent can get information from the teacher that, yes, they handed in the work and it was exactly as I wanted, or yes, they handed in the work, but not by following the directions. And so it's really important that all these partners have communication. Really highly recommend that, especially for high school students, you do the communicating with the parent and with the teacher. A second fundamental is that this road to independence is a process. And I love this picture of the windy road, and spend so much time kind of on these switchbacks, feeling like there's such limited success, but actually there is success. And sometimes we go back a little, but it is a process of moving forward. Let's look at this example of the 4 steps of helping a student with this. What is this process that's a windy road, and how does it change? So we're going to go ahead and start with the student is being instructed by the adult who is directing it. We're going to set up your desk together. We're going to use this timer, and I'm going to help you. Why don't you set the timer now? I'm going to teach you how to do it. Leading that to, after a while, going to the adult guiding. Okay, we're going to start our homework. What are you going to set in order to make sure that you are on task and that you allow a certain amount of time? How much time are you going to allow for that? Then, as there's more and more practice, the student becomes more and more responsible. The parent might watch from a distance and then back off a little. And then the student owning it. They're independent with it. The adult removes, and indeed might start with another strategy because that one particular task is independent. Until something changes and we have to back step a little. Online learning, a pandemic, and then that goes from adult monitored to adult directed. But we do move along and work back through the process. And each time you work back through the process, it goes more smoothly and faster. The students start feeling more confident in their own skills to implement these strategies. The next one is that executive functioning skills have to be applied within the context of study skills. They can't be taught in isolation. It's difficult for me to teach a student initiation and have them apply it to homework. It's just best if all of these skills are actually initially taught and applied directly while doing studying skills. You're essentially looking at teaching the student how to help them learn instead of what to learn. They're applying this. And so this is where you're teaching them how to have that metacognition of what worked, what didn't work, what do I need to modify, and what do I need to change. And so at the end of a test, when a student comes home, let's look at it. What worked with the test? When you studied, which of those strategies helped you? Which ones do you think we need to change a little before you study for the next test? And so looking at the successes and anything that needs to be modified instead of just the ones that are wrong. So let me help you come up with ways to foster that relationship with the student to coach them. Have the student complete the task with your support instead of you completing the task. And I know that it's really hard, especially for young 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, where you're saying, okay, so what is, if we're taking this 3-digit times 4 times the 2-digit, let's line them up. Remember, you have to put the 2-digit underneath the ones. Instead of doing that, looking at it in terms of, do you have an example you can follow? Let's look at your book. Maybe it might even be to help them contact the teacher to see if they could get an example for future times that they're doing homework. Refer to a specific task when talking about homework. So it's too broad to say, have you done your homework? That could mean, yes, I've looked at my planner and I think I did, to, yes, I completed all 10 problems front and back. And so looking at, especially if a student is having most difficulty, maybe with the chemistry homework, how were you able to work through getting that chemistry lab completed? So that helps them talk through the process instead of the yes/no question of, is your homework done? Because I can promise you the answer is, yes, my homework is done. End of communication. If it isn't done, ask them what their plan is to get it completed. What time are you expecting to do it? Can I help remind you about the time? Do you have the materials ready? Is there anything you need to do before you're able to sit down and do that work? And also, instead of offering your strategy of, well, when I was studying for this, it really helped me, you can offer it, but let the student choose the strategy. If that strategy doesn't work for that particular assignment, they will have learned so much. And so when you talk with them about it after the assignment, they can say, well, my idea didn't quite learn, but that value of learning that is immeasurable. Focus on their ownership to complete the work and let them learn from their mistakes. And it is so hard. We want our students to go ahead and do all their assignments at the best of their ability. And that is exactly what we want. And students, that's exactly what every adult wants for you. And we want you to feel that way also. But allow those mistakes, and students learn from those mistakes. Allow those mistakes to happen, and don't be fearful for them. Accept those challenges. And then also we talked about communicating any new challenge, any new strategies, so that everyone's on the same page. This is an important fundamental of the point of performance. All cues, all executive function strategies need to be visible at the place and time the student is doing work. So for example, this is a worksheet, and it said questions, answer all 3 questions. Now, if I'm the teacher and I want them to be answered in complete sentences, it needs to be written right here on the directions. Answer all 3 questions in complete sentences. This is where having homework planners online can be a little tricky, because it's not visible in front of them at the time, and it takes initiation to find it and identify all of the tasks. Having that paper and pencil planner is often very beneficial for a student who's really struggling with organizing all their tasks, when we're going to talk about that in a little bit. When implementing new strategies, and you're going to get a whole bunch of them today, it's going to be so tempting to say, we're going to try 6 of them starting tomorrow. And that will overload the student's cognitive load. And indeed, with the student, help them choose 1 or 2 to start with until we get that student independence. Because with a student that has trouble organizing everything, if you implement all of these activities, it will overload and it will become unorganized. And then the sequence of executive functioning skills is not universal. So looking at that task, of that homework task that we had, every single one of these, a different student might have a different challenge, and you have to actually find out what is that actual challenge. Because to say they didn't hand in their homework, there could be this many reasons that they didn't hand in the homework, and each one of them could have a different strategy. So looking at what exactly is it that made you handing in the homework so difficult? The bottom line is, when you're looking at these study skills and the executive functioning skills that support it, students' developmental level has to be considered. A third grader will take far more parent, teacher, instructed level of support than a high schooler. But for a high schooler, that this is extremely difficult, brand new, don't know anything about the subject, that it's almost as if they were starting out at like the 7th grade level, just at that topic, and needed some strategies. So looking for that. They need the time and practice for the strategies to be automatic. You really can't rush implementing and going through the process of adult instructed to teacher to student independent. And remember that it's going to go back and forth, but you're always looking at the forward motion of it. The student input is crucial. You can list a whole plethora of strategies, but without the student choosing it and implementing it and talking to you about it, it's just a list of strategies. And students, you got to invest in these. And once again, we're talking investing in 1 or 2 at a time, not changing your whole world at once, 1 or 2 strategies at a time. And also, just for adults, when you're doing adult coaching, one of the biggest questions I get from parents is, if I keep helping them, they're in 7th or 8th grade, will they become a dependent learner? If you're helping them actually do the assignment, then they could. But if you're coaching them and posing questions to help them do the assignment, then you are not. And it might be that they actually can't finish that assignment that night, but you can guide them to email the teacher for support. And so what our bottom, I love the family circle, family circus. And here's Billy being asked to take a letter to the mailbox right away. But he didn't get there in time. And what we want is for our students to have a straight line from the mom's request to the mailbox and guide them through that task. I love Billy and the family circus, so just had to put that in there. Even with accommodations in the classrooms, and accommodations are important and we're not minimizing that, but this is on executive functioning and study skills. Preparing for a test, writing a paper, learning new content, there is no substitute. It will take your time, students. There's nothing I can do to give you less time to do this work. And it will take your actions. Now, once again, we're not talking starting a dozen new things at one time. 1 or 2 new things and talking through it and finding that mentor that you can process this with. So we're going to look at the 4 parts of a plan. And this is not a webinar on plan development, so this is just one slide. But there's 4 parts of this that make a plan for a student successful. What are you going to do? What you're going to go ahead and complete this assignment on time. That's what your goal is. You want to make sure that your goal might be follow directions according to the teacher's instructions. How am I going to do it? This is the strategy that you're going to choose. These are the 2 that I really want to take a moment to talk about. Your accountability. Students, you need to have someone that you can trust. It could be a parent, it can be a teacher, it can be, I've known coaches have done this, meaning an athletic coach. Who is it that you're going to tell that you're doing this journey to go ahead and apply these strategies? This is no different than someone who New Year's Day says, I'm going to the gym 3 times a week, and I don't tell anyone. And 4 weeks in, you haven't gone to the gym and no one's the wiser that you haven't followed your plan. It is no different. It is often the parent, and that's perfectly fine, but there has to be a person that the student can feel safe, that they can be accountable for their progress, and to stop and talk to that person and think about how the strategy is working and what they need to do to be successful. So when looking at this, and once again, this is not a webinar just on the plan, but before creating a plan, coach the student to use the strategy successfully. So often you're going to go right into having the kid use a strategy instead of creating a goal. Often kids don't know what their goal is. If they don't feel safe with the strategy, they aren't even going to set the goal. So sometimes you have the student determine which strategy they're going to try first. Make the plan for one small event, an upcoming vocabulary test. That's what we're going to start with. Not what are you going to do by June of this year, but you have a test that's coming up. What strategy, what plan, what are you going to implement in order to be successful for this one test? And be specific with what the plan applies to. Make the goal realistic. A lot of times when I ask kids to come up with goals and identify goals, they'll say, I'll get 100 on the next test. Mistakes are acceptable. Mistakes indicate where you have growth that you need to do. There is nothing wrong. I would even say if a student was getting a 60, go to a 70, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm really even leery with making that goal grade oriented. Make it, I will understand how to do multiple choice vocabulary tests. I will practice doing that. That's where my improvement will be. And then be adult directed initially and be comfortable with that. Spend time helping them reflect, and we've already talked about that, but I can't stress it enough. But when you're looking at the PowerPoint for in the future, I just added that in there because it is part of the plan. This is just an example of what lower school students have done. They just have this. It's at the point of performance. It's sitting right in front of their desk area. It's on a cork board. This is what their goal is. And they plan to use a timer and have a clean desk in order to work with that goal. 1 or 2 strategies at the point of performance so it's visual and everyone knows. Just a real quick point about meeting your physical needs while even working with those executive functioning skills. You got kids, you need to eat well. You need to eat before going to school. Have a snack while you're doing homework. Get plenty of sleep and exercise. Move around, stand up, get the blood moving. Can't stress that enough. So now we're going to go ahead and look at some of the, excuse me one moment. We're going to look at the study skill strategies. This is what I'm assuming most people have come here to look at, but that preliminary work was so fundamental in order to understand. I could teach you all these strategies, but then it just becomes a list of strategies. How do you implement them, and what are the fundamentals? And I'm hoping that those slides will help refresh your memory later as you try to implement some of these things. Looking at the home classroom. Have a clear desk. Designate a space for all that. That's the one thing that I really like. There's a drawer here where the pencils, the staplers, the calculator, the cord for the computer, all of that can be housed. For papers, and I have this as a little filing thing, or there could be notebooks that are up on the shelf, or here, this could be where the computer board is. And then, if possible, not required, but depending on a student who is extremely easily distractible, maybe place the desk against a bare wall. not looking outside of a window. Now, this is not required for all students, but it is helpful for many students. Also, and I love this picture, and the kids really do get a chuckle out of it. I don't know if you can notice, and this is intentional, the same assignment is sitting on both desks. And it becomes pretty apparent why I need to begin and end homework with an empty desk surface. Because I can see that this paper has been left behind, where this paper could easily be left up behind, the one on the left. Unfortunately, my students will often laugh and say, you took a picture of my desk. I think it's a little bit of hyperbole, but still, even half of this clutter is way too much. We want to make sure we have materials with us and able to hand them in at school or have them in front of the computer during online. Often people have multiple people working at the same desk. That makes perfect sense. Everybody is either working from home or kids. In order to be able to still have a clutter-free desk, you can get trays. This one just happens to be a stack of colored trays and a different color for each person using it. So if there's 2 students, the one is using a green and all their materials are in the green tray, and the sister has their materials in the yellow tray, and mom has her club meeting notes in the white tray. And so each person has their tray and everyone respects the materials that are within that person's tray. What I've done here for future reference as well is to kind of do a review of some of these things of helping with the student. This is where you have the student tips for success about setting up your desk, collecting all the materials, keeping them in a drawer and putting them away. A parent guiding them through that and saying, can you show me your empty desk? Let's go through, do you need us to replenish any of your supplies? So posing those questions instead of just going in, taking a survey of everything and buying them yourself. And teachers, give students a list of supplies that they will need to have in that place. Sometimes I'll ask the kids to turn their computer around so I can see what their workstation is. And also just the class for the teacher to set up a culture that you're expecting them to have the same rules at their home desk as you would at your school desk. And so I have them there that you can refer to later. Looking at schedules and the monthly schedule, the weekly schedule, the nightly schedule, keeping track of is on Google Calendar. I'm supposed to meet with this teacher on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this teacher with Tuesday, Thursday. It's just looking at, and indeed, at the point of performance, visual in front of them. If at all possible, even if they aren't using this for the links, having a schedule in front of you, having on the wall a little cork board, or taping it onto the side of the desk or something like that. Having it within view. And always, always, always put breaks on the schedule. Breaks are extremely important. They aren't something that you do if you have time. You need to make time, especially when so much of this work is done on the computer, and you need to get those breaks, get those brain breaks, let the eyes take a rest. And have an alarm in order to set that time. So at the end of break, you go back. This is a calendar that I have found and love it. It's at the point of performance in front of you. You can see it. It has the days of the week. It has a place to put your nightly to-do list of exactly what it is. It can be written there with dry erase. and then it can be erased as you finish it. And your goal is to empty that at the end, but you still have your daily important information on here. I found this at Target. I found it at Staples. It was really cheap, but that is an example of a calendar of assignments that is in front of you, and it is at the place of your work site. Another thing that you can do, this is not fancy, there's no bells and whistles. The kids can go through the Google Classroom, come up with all the lists. If they get a list of all the different classes and exactly what they need to do, they get a sense of time, because otherwise everything's out of their vision and they don't see that I've got homework in 5 classes and 2 of them are projects. So take 5 minutes to guide the student, help the student, talk the student through kind of just coming up with your nightly to-do list of what you're going to work on. And be specific with exactly what it is. It's not lengthy, but just exactly, I'm doing worksheet 2B and I anticipate it'll take 15 minutes. This will help them also learn time management and how long to allow for a task. One great piece of advice, because they're going to look at this and say, I've got so much and I can't, especially if there's all this on there, or if there's even 2 more on there, it's just overwhelming. So we cover up some of those things and we work as a list of singular tasks. So here's tonight's homework. I'm dividing it according to class, and I'm just looking at individual things. I take that list, I take a sheet of paper, I cover up everything except one task, and I designate this time to do one task. That's the only thing I can visually see. It's the only thing I have papers for in front of me. For those, especially the older ones who do use electronic and don't need quite as intensive point of performance, one app, and it's in every smartphone, is the Notes feature. The Notes does now have a table format, and you can enter and create a table. You put all the classes that student has. They can go into the second part of that table at the end of class, use the microphone, and dictate what their assignment is. It's really quick. They can delete the assignment when they are done with it. I don't like many of the homework apps because there's so many bells and whistles. A student with organization difficulty has trouble navigating those apps. If it is a savvy tech person and it works, please use it. And once again, I have just a review of the things for students, parents, and teachers that are on here, looking at your daily schedule, taking the scheduled breaks. We've talked about that. Scheduling, program your schedule into a phone or an iPad with the alarm. We talked about the alarm. Parents establish the culture that certain hours are school hours, whether they have class with that teacher or not. That could be study hours, that could be project hours, but keep a consistent set of hours and have the classroom desk away from a bedroom if possible. With 3 kids, your bedroom might be your best choice. I'm not saying no, but if that bedroom becomes distracting, it isn't ideal. See if there's another place. Teachers assign due dates and let them know when they are. And see if you can schedule those due dates for the end of not at midnight, because then they might be doing that kind of fosters having them do homework at 11 o'clock at night, and that's not what we want to foster. And also consider organizational bonus points and you can look in the Google Docs to see what time they did do it. Did they do it during the day hours? Another difficulty with students with executive functioning skills is time management. For many students, the picture on the left is what time looks like and feels like. 5 minutes could last an hour, and an hour they could say that something that takes an hour, they'll say, I can do it in 5 minutes. And this is why a student will often say, I've got 3 hours of homework tonight, when in reality, it might be 45 minutes. That perception of it's going to take 3 hours is what hinders initiating. Because once they start, their perception is, I need to spend 3 hours on this, and I'm just not up to that. But they don't need to be, and they need the guidance. So we're going to go ahead and make time visible. And we're going to look at a timer. Allot it per assignment. Let's look at this. That worksheet, you only have 5 problems, and it's basic multiplication. I don't think you need 45 minutes. How much time do you think you really need? Guide them through that instead of let's sit down and start this assignment. I can't stress that enough, those brain breaks. And schedule and protect free time. So in other words, what do you plan to do when your homework is over? Because we want to make sure that you have time to do it. Your free time is urgently valuable, and we want to do it, and we're going to schedule it. So we're going to schedule that at 8:30 tonight. It is your plan to whatever it is. So from 6 to 7:30 with 2 5-minute breaks is what you're going to work on for homework. But they know that that protected time is available for their free time activity. Here's 2 ways to go ahead and make time concrete, especially for younger students, the analog clock. And it's not that you need 2 of them, but this is just a regular analog clock, and we put a sticky note. Now that doesn't mean, it might be that they only need 20 minutes, so you would move the sticker over to the 4. Help the student put the sticker on and say, this is the amount of time that I need to do this assignment. For older students, a time timer, there is this red disc, and you just move, there's a little knob on there that you can't see, but you can feel it, it's a clear knob, and you just move that knob for the amount of time. And as time passes, that red disc disappears. But they can see the passage of time and how much more. And if they know that that time is coming, that they get a break, they can sustain their attention a little longer. For those that are tech savvy, the only timer that I've used that I recommend is the Focus Keeper, because it stays on. Now it does suck your battery. You might want to plug in the phone, but it does stay on, and you watch the passage of time. If you use the timer in your phone, the phone goes black, the face of it goes black, and you've lost the purpose of point of performance in front of you and visual. I do want to take just a moment to talk about the idea of music for high school students, and there is research indicating that it can be used as a time management system. If a student sets up a playlist of very familiar music, not new music that they want to learn, familiar music that can become white noise, they learn the passage of time with that playlist of when they're getting closer to the end of that 40 minutes. And for students that are taking APs or have a lot of, or juniors in high school, you might need 2 or 3 of these 40-minute playlists per evening or per weekend homework session. It does allow them in the back of their brain to follow that 40 minutes. They're coming close to the end, because this is one of those songs that's near the end. I only have to focus for 2 more songs. I'm good to go. If it works, do it. For some students, it is valuable. So modeling that class management in the classroom, Allow the students to have a task and set the timer, tell them how long you're going to do it, tell them to work on it independently, give them a 1-minute warning, and then let them hear it. So if you're going to do it for 3 minutes, let them know we're going to work on this for 3 minutes, and then we're going to be done at it. They get a sense of what does 3 minutes feel like, what does 5 minutes feel like. We're not looking for extending time with this activity. So for a student that gets extended time, give them a reduced assignment. This is really only for the purposes of understanding the passage of time. For middle school and high school, you can go ahead and do the same thing. But the one challenge with middle school and high school students, especially if you tell them they have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, they can start their homework. For students with executive functioning challenges, initiating and starting homework when they only have 5 or 10 minutes, in their mind they think, I have all night, I don't know where to start, it'll be easier for me to just pack up. So instead of offering it, identify, everyone get out your work, you're going to start with this assignment, I'm giving you 10 minutes, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning. And once again, they might be surprised that in that 10 minutes they can get it done, and they start getting practice with the sense of time as it passes. Long-term assignments, and how do we start them? The biggest challenge, and I love this one, and I am going to rush through this, but this is Jeremy, and the first day, yeah, I'm going to start the second day. Nope, 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 nope. And it's due tomorrow. And I show this to my students, and they say, yep, that's me, absolutely. And often it is that initiation because I don't know the first thing I'm supposed to do. So looking at that, I tell the students, you are beginning on the first day. If nothing else, you are letting your parent know what materials they might need to go purchase or go get. You need to know exactly what this assignment is. Compile a list of questions for the teachers or confirmation. Understand what is the final project. This is what you can do on that first day. I'm giving you the task. You're reading the directions and understanding what the final project is and identifying the first task to be complete. I just want to know one thing that I'm going to start doing tomorrow. Tackle one task at a time by the deadline, and consult with the teacher with each step. Because just like anything else, if that first step is incorrect, the rest of the project will be incorrect. And it's really hard if you get too far in. And record all those deadlines on a planner or the big wall calendar works quite well. I have the students also take the directions that this teacher has, the directions I give, and they write a sticky note for every single task that they need to do, and they put it on their calendar. And they know that that night is that task that they're going to do. This has worked quite successfully. So my task the first night is to simply break down my assignment. What is this assignment, and what are all the different tasks I need to do? This is just an example of even a 3rd and 4th grader doing this. Essentially, this is a list of things they had to do. So this was all the sticky notes at one point. Monday, Tuesday, oh, it was given to them here. So this was the to-do. It started on this Thursday, and they broke it apart, and they decided the different days. They also preserved a day off, and it's all done before it is due. Just like every other, this is a lot of review. I'm actually not going to go ahead and go through this because this is identical to it, but this is a summary and a synopsis that you can use whether you're a student, a parent, or a teacher to support the student's independence. Managing online assignments and documents, and this has become a whole of where do I find it, and I feel it is becoming quite a new task, and it is difficult to organize. Use file and folders even when they're online. Have content no more, teachers, if you can, no more than one click away. If they need to reference something, have it just one click away, and have all the other kinds of things on a different assignment. I would highly recommend also, if you have access to a printer, go ahead and print a lot of documents that you might want to use to study with or to reference later. So for example, my students are working on learning Latin roots. They are writing them on a piece of paper, and that paper is in their Hill notebook, because it's something I want them to open up frequently, immediately, and have it in front of them when we're working on that. And so we want to make that as easily accessible as possible. So often I have reference material that the students write out and put in their notebook. But if a student took a test or a quiz, and that information might be in a test, parents have them print it out or recommend they print it out and put it in the notebook so it can be a study material for an upcoming test. Once again, the point of performance in front of you, concrete, so it's visually easy to follow. Consider disabling the stream, and that's the one here. Students, that I disable it and everything is in the classwork, because I can organize my classwork part of the Google Classroom, but I can't organize stream, and kids go directly to the stream, because when I open up Google Classroom goes directly to the stream. So I disabled it so that they have to go directly to my classwork. Also, when they're taking a test, I move all material for that test into a new topic of grammar test. So they don't have to go through all of my topics to find out what material to study for the test. And once again, this is just a review for this, talking about printing out of materials, avoiding tabs that are, some kids have tabs that are 8, 9, 10 tabs that are open, and it's hard to find what you want. Avoiding the streaming. Encourage, one thing here is encourage the parents, you can encourage your student to email your teacher with their teacher with questions about the homework assignment. Instead of you tutoring them the assignment, encourage them to email. Encourage them to read directions out loud, because without a piece of paper in front of them, they don't have anything to hold on to. It helps to have that auditory. And teachers show the homework assignment. Instead of referencing that it's on Google Classroom, share your screen and go in and show them that it's in this topic and this is the assignment, and open it up. And in order to prepare for all of this, I decided to interview quite a few teachers, parents, and students to find out what their gems of advice are. And I got quite a few. And one of them is, give yourself grace to learn this, to implement some of these. And teachers, as much as I've said to the students, don't implement 10 of these tomorrow, teachers, don't implement 10 of these tomorrow. But work with the students and say, I'm learning also, and I'm going to try this new strategy. And students, you're going to help me understand if this works or not. So let's give it a few days. And also a number of teachers that really said the exact same thing that I talked about earlier, a whole new perspective of how the challenges for students that have executive functioning challenges, because it's real, and I feel it now every single day as I sit down and try to organize my class. Parents, understand the EF development of the brain and feel safe supporting your child. If you're not actually helping them and kind of doing the work for them, but giving them leading questions to support them, or asking them to email their teacher, or asking them to process the metacognition, you're not going to create the dependency. And feel comfort in that this is a process that takes time. And I can promise you, parents, you are not alone. There are many, there's probably, if people were honest, far more students with organization executive functioning challenges, because they're not 24 yet, than will be that would admit to it. And students have a couple of pieces of advice for teachers. Choice boards are overwhelming to them, and I know that they're exciting and it gives so much autonomy, but if you ask them to do 5 things on that choice board, using the choice board becomes the 6th topic assignment. So that's where they won't initiate. And no matter what I say, and this came from the mouth of a student, no matter what I say, I need structure, I need a homework sheet, and I need time management. So don't listen to my comment of, I'm good. Give me that support no matter how much I say I don't need it. I felt the student comments were so insightful. So, in a nutshell, that is the information on time management, organization, looking at the fundamentals, which I'm hoping now you see were crucial to understand the fundamentals. I do want to also give you some information on to save the date for, this is this is the first in a series of webinars. The next one is 8 strategies to help students process new information, and that is in October. In November, we're going to be going over, and once again, this is all part of Hill Learning Center's executive functioning curriculum, creating study plans for tests and exams. This invitations to register for these webinars will be available tomorrow on the website, and also will be included in an email that you will receive tomorrow with a video and a survey.
I can't thank people enough for coming tonight. This has been wonderful to share this space with you. Certainly hope that you found it helpful and were able to take something away that you can go and implement right away with the student who needs your help. And thank you again, Geraldine, for your time and efforts on this tonight.
And can I give a special shout out and applaud to any student who's there? Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And we are going to sign off now and hope to see you on October 14th.